Welcome to the C-Suite, where we're helping women to create choices in their careers. On today's episode is all about aligning who you are with what you do. Our first guest is Wanda Deschamps. She is the founder and principal at Liberty Co. in Waterloo Region. She speaks out and helps to train organizations on neurodiversity and how to best support, attract, and retain neurodiverse talent. So thank you, Wanda, for being here today.
Thanks so much for the opportunity.
You're welcome. So you do, if anyone follows you on LinkedIn, you do a lot of your posts and they include the hashtags, hashtag inclusion revolution and women for women. So where did this, hashtag inclusion revolution really start for you?
It started for me in the winter of 2019 when I was watching the World Economic Forum from Davos, and I saw the disability panel with Caroline Casey and Paul Pullman, who are leading an effort to ensure greater participation in the workforce of the disability community worldwide, which is 1.3 million. And actually, there's a specific program called the Valuable 500, and CEOs from around the world are joining it. And it's to revolutionize disability employment. And so that was really a defining moment for me when I realized that I was going to get more involved in disability employment and specifically the opportunities around neurodiverse talent and ensuring that, as I said before, that we're participating at a higher level in the workforce. And so I started using Inclusion Revolution to promote that, to celebrate it, to recognize it, and the work of creators Caroline Casey and Paul Pullman.
So you're talking about a lot about supporting diversity and inclusion in the workforce, and you really speak out and are a champion for neurodiversity. Can you explain a little bit about what neurodiversity is and really what it is and how organizations can best support that?
So neurodiversity is a term that was coined by Judy Singer, an Australian sociologist, and it references differences in brain makeups. So autism is one, but others would be dyslexia and dyscalculia and what we term as ADHD. And there is a very wide spectrum, but for our listeners to understand in some basic terms, usually characterized by differences in social communication and interpersonal relations. And some of the talents and skills that can be particularly present in the neurodiverse population, and again, there's a huge spectrum, but there can be some specific talent and skills around pattern recognition and in some cases mathematics. And our differences in social communication and interpersonal relations can actually lead to certain kinds of creativity, especially when it comes to communications. So these are the skills and talents that we would like to be better recognized in the workforce. And the majority of the neurodiverse population, like the disability population worldwide, is regrettably either underemployed or unemployed. And I'm working to help change that.
And you're really helping to change that by sharing your own personal journey as well around neurodiversity. Do you mind sharing a little bit more about that?
So I was diagnosed with autism at almost age 47. And this followed a particularly difficult time for me in terms of mental health challenges that were presenting in my day-to-day through my family relationships and through work. And they were hitting a crisis point. The winter of 2017 through to the spring 2017. And our younger son was diagnosed with autism in May of 2017. And I had a complete breakdown at my work earlier that month. And coincidentally, I had a pre-scheduled doctor's appointment the day after our son's diagnosis. And I said to my family physician, I would like a referral for a psychological assessment. I believe I have it too.
Wow. And so what was that like getting that diagnosis for you? And how did that impact you and your work as well?
It was a relief because I always knew I was different And I was different in a number of ways, even outside of autism, even in terms of my family circumstances and other things at play. But it was beyond different. It was telling me that it's about my neurology. So it was a relief. It meant that through understanding my neurology, I could become more self aware and I could become more tuned to my strengths and my weaknesses, both related and unrelated to my autism. So this meant that that would apply to my work as well. And of course, as you mentioned, my own diagnosis was my impetus eventually to dedicate my firm to neurodiverse talent.
You wrote an article for Broadway Magazine back in March 2020 that was later republished through Reader's Digest Canada. And in it, you wrote, "My diagnosis was like discovering a piece of my brain, picking it up, putting it in place, and feeling whole for the first time." So, kind of what was that feeling like when you knew? And then how did you move forward from that?
Well, as I say, it was a relief. And just to give you an example, after I said to my psychologist, it's a relief, she said to me, "Let me guess, you weren't good at math." And I said, "No." And I always thought it was because I was stupid. So better able to understand the way my brain works. And so better to able to understand what's me and what's my brain and differences in brain makeup.
Mhm. So, how can organizations and workplaces better support neurodiverse talent?
Number one, recognizing that it exists, that we are indeed very talented. I'd be delighted, of course, to come into any organization and work with a, work around a strategy, a program related to neurodiverse talent acquisition and retention as part of any inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility strategy, because it doesn't stand on its own. It's part of overall inclusive hiring. And when it comes to neurodiversity, a special commitment to accessibility.
And it sounds like right now those programs, those systems are not necessarily, they're either in place in organizations or there's just not the same awareness of them.
There's not. I say that we're at the nascent stage. So unfortunately, we have a lot of work to catch up on. But the good news is that there's a great opportunity ahead of us. And now's the time.
Wonderful. So thank you so much for taking this time to share more about what neurodiversity is and how organizations can really get on board and become more aware and supportive of the neurodiverse talent that does exist in our communities.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And stick around. We're going to be heading into a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to be again building on this conversation around aligning who you are with what you do. We will be right back.